Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and I love the New Edge Mustangs. My brother and I are probably some of the biggest advocates for them. So this definitely is not a hate video, but we know these cars very well, and we're going to talk about today some of the things that we don't like about them. All in all, they're great cars. They're reliable for their era. They're very well built, and they'll last a long time. Okay, but there are some drawbacks with them, and so I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of those in this video. But keep in mind, my brother and I have a huge collection of these. We've worked on them. We've done everything from transmission swaps to engine swaps to gear installs, anything you can think of, so check the video description. Okay, the first thing that always comes up with these cars is the ride height. It looks like a 4x4. Look at the gap between the wheel and the fender. Now, luckily, this is something very easy to fix. They make it super simple on the Mustang, which is a good thing about the car. It's fun to work on and upgrade and play around with. But I have install videos on the springs and the caster camber plates and everything you would need to correct that situation. Okay, body panels, the cars, it's a Ford, okay? Look at the wave in the bumper here where the trunk and the bumper meet. You can see the gap on the left side. You can see where it has this wave in it. Ford definitely could have done a little bit better on some of the fit and finish. Okay, but something that really does bother me above and beyond, just about every other car on the inside, you can choose if you want the air going to the top or the floor vents. My wife's Infiniti, just like this, you can choose you want face, floor, both, or defrost. Okay, on the Mustang, you have very few options. It's off, coming out the top vents, coming out only the bottom vents, or it's going to be the bottom vents with defrost. So you have it coming out at your feet and then only at the defrost up here at the top. So you're going to freeze one way or the other. I like to have it on both. Otherwise, the interior on these cars is really not that bad. Consider it's 1994 technology. Okay, it actually holds up really well. This is a lower mile Cobra, so of course, you know, it's not completely worn out, but I understand things break. These door pulls, for example, they break all the time, especially towards the top. They creak. You can kind of hear it and feel it here. But you know, they do break up here at the top, and then they kind of fall out. But you know, it's really not the worst thing in the world. That's about as bad as it gets. One thing I do not like is on all of these, even this low mileage Cobra, look at how the dashboard and the center console paint do not match. That's normal. I've had people message me and ask me what's up, and I'm like, that's just normal. Okay, the center console, you can hear how much force it takes to unhook this, and by doing that, a lot of times it will start to tear right here. And even though it's a nice soft piece, it does wear out pretty fast. And I'll show you here on my 200,000 mile GT. Yeah, you can see it's completely, you know, separated and bad. And they sell replacement parts, so it's not a bad thing. Okay, now let's talk about the 2-valve Mustang GT engine. Okay. It has some good technology in it. It's an overhead cam. It is underpowered at 260 horsepower. Now, for the time, that's not that bad. This basically the same engine that was in it starting in 1996 was only 215 horsepower, and that one was really underpowered. But when you compare the Camaro and everything at 285 horsepower in their LT1, and then going up to 300 horsepower in the LS1, GM did it better because even though it was a pushrod engine, they were giving you a bigger displacement engine, and all of their V8s had basically the same engine. The Mustang, they kind of punished you if you didn't get the 32-valve dual overhead cam Cobra engine. And so that's something that Ford definitely, in my opinion, they should have just put 32 valves in all the Mustangs if their alternative was to give you the 2-valve that we have now. Nothing to say horrible about the 2-valve, though. It is a very reliable engine. It will last hundreds of thousands of miles if properly maintained. It's very simple, but it's just not a powerhouse. Ford, you know, was on the right track when they went to the 32-valve, but they wanted to keep the Cobra separated from the GT and give you something more when you did step it up to buy the Cobra or the Mach 1. Now, along the lines of the 4.6 liter V8, let's talk about now the Terminator engine is a work of art, beautiful, 1,000 horsepower capable engine. Now, this is what the connecting rods look like in all of the other Mustangs other than the Terminator. It is a toothpick-looking $6 Ford's cost connecting rod. Okay, this is the weak link on all the Mustangs, and knowing that people were going to upgrade the Mustangs, they should have done something better. You can see the Terminator rod here, forged H-beam beautiful connecting rod. They'll hold 1,000 horsepower. I'm not saying all the Mustangs should have had that, but they should have been better than what they came with in limiting at 450 horsepower or so. Now, the 2-valve, the biggest concern, the biggest problem with it is the intake manifold. You can see it has metal and plastic that mix, and it will crack and leak coolant down into the valley, and then you have to take the whole manifold off and replace it with another one that's probably going to crack later. So it will leak back down into here, into the back, put coolant down into your spark plugs, everything. So that's the biggest problem I have with the 4.6 is that plastic intake manifold. And that's 2-valve only. Next, let's talk about the ratcheting mechanism for the clutch. Now, these are cable-operated clutches, and I think that's okay. The GM hydraulic ones would stick to the floor, but this one had like a mechanism that's made of plastic, and you pull up on the pedal to self-ratchet it, to adjust it, and it just strips. You have to go and get one of these firewall adjusters, and then see this metal one. It's the Clutch Quadrant aftermarket version. It's a must to do that. Now, for the most part, the 8.8-inch rear end found in the GT and the Cobra is a great differential. There's nothing really too bad about it. It does have a very low spline count, 28 spline. Here's an upgraded 31 spline shaft, which the 01 and newer Cobras got. And so I do have videos on swapping out the differential because you have to change the shafts and the carrier to accept the better shafts. If not, you can get hardened steel axles, which I did have in my Mach 1 from Alloy USA. Great axles, and a very good way to upgrade it without having to change out the whole differential. But with that, you might want to dig into the rear end anyway because of the gear ratios. Now, the earlier Mustangs, 94 through 98, had 2.73s in a lot of cases. But from 99 to 04, all of the Mustangs got a 3.27 rear end axle ratio, except for the Mach 1, which got the 355, and the 0304 Cobra. And so that's a very, very tall gear ratio, and very hard to push. Now, of course, this is all done for fuel economy, but anyway, I do have a full video series on changing out the rear end ratio, and I think these cars do the best with anything from a 355, 373, or a 410. Those are kind of the best ratios. But jumping back to the V6 and the 7.5-inch open-end differential, it's a disgrace. It's only one wheel gets power for the most part on the passenger side, so if you do a burnout, you're only going to get a one-wheel wonder, one-legged burnout, one-wheel peel, whatever you want to call it. And the sad truth was you really didn't need much more. With the V6 only producing 190 horsepower, it went up to 193 a little bit later. But anyway, it was very underpowered. It's a pushrod V6 engine, which, this was technology, again, back from 1994 and, slightly upgraded from 150 horsepower to the 190s. But other car companies' V6 engines were well past 200 in this time era. Now, Ford really would punish you as well with the V6. No fog lights, 15-inch wheels, no hood scoops or real side scoops, one little dinky exhaust pipe coming out the rear, so it really was an upgrade to go to the GT. And the trend of punishing you continued with the gauges. The gauges aren't bad, but on the V6, you only got 120 mile-an-hour gauges, and with a pushrod engine, just over 5,000 on the red line. So, really not the best setup. When you had Honda Civics, that gauges would go to 140 and be redlining in the 6,000 or 7,000 range. Okay, guys, but these cars are really great. They sound great if you have the V8, regardless if it's 2-valve or 4-valve. Here's the Mach 1. But they're great cars. They're reliable. They're fun to play with. You have to really keep in mind the era that they were designed in. Okay, a lot of people are trying to compare them to a 2020 GT 500 or a new 5.0. And the fact is, you're talking about cars that were designed just basically coming off of the gas crunch. Okay, so yeah, there was some left to be desired. By the time it got to the end here, 2003 and 4, Ford really did a great job with the Terminators, fully forged engine, powerhouse, beautiful cars. And you can have a lot of fun with these cars. They're cheap to buy, they're cheap to mod. You can find parts for them all over the place on eBay or Facebook parts pages for really cheap. And with regular hand tools, you can do everything you want to these cars. So there's a lot of good things about them. They're lasting really long for their age, and you just have to remember how old they are. So in the end, they are great cars. Don't give them too hard of a time, and just accept them for what they are. They're not going to have you know, all the creature comforts or amenities that a brand new car should. So anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you've owned one of these or are planning to get one, let me know what you think. If you did like the video, please feel free to subscribe and like it, and just check the video description. I'll put a link to a lot of the videos that I've made on these cars. If you're new to them and you're going to get one, then I have a whole maintenance guide for helping you with them, and a lot of fun videos. So anyway, again, thanks for watching. Stay safe and check out the other videos. Thanks, guys.